Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Reduce, Reboot, Recycle. My name is Veasbot, your guide to lateral thinking with withered technology. Today, we're following up on our last episode by tackling GPU overheating. Specifically, we'll be servicing a used graphics card from eBay that starts showing visual artifacts once it warms up. Let's pull it apart and make sure that it can keep itself cool. As usual, the first step is to remove the affected component. We open the case, lay the chassis on its side, and carefully remove the GPU. If you need a refresher, check out our previous video that's linked in the title cards. Once the card is out, move the case aside and set the GPU on a non-conductive mat. These are typically plastic or rubber, but avoid fibrous surfaces like wood, which can damage delicate components on the underside of the card. Before we begin disassembly, keep in mind that some GPUs are extremely delicate and should not be taken apart at home. One example of this is the Radeon R9 Fury series from around 2015. Those cards use HBM, or high bandwidth memory, which is integrated very close to the GPU die and can be damaged easily. If you're dealing with a card like that, it's best to leave it to the professionals. Research your model on sites like iFixit or Reddit before proceeding with a repair. Now, let's go ahead and get this one apart. Start by removing all the screws around the perimeter of the card, which will typically release the fan shroud. Keep the screws organized by laying them out near their original locations in the pattern they came out in. Leave the 4 screws that secure the GPU cooler in place for now. Tug gently on the shroud or fan housing to confirm it's free before removing, as it's easy to break parts with too much force. With the perimeter screws out and the accessories removed, we can tackle the GPU cooler. As with CPU coolers, unscrew it in a diagonal, corner-to-corner pattern to avoid uneven pressure. Once loosened, gently twist the cooling unit and the GPU board in opposite directions to break the seal on the thermal paste. Be patient, as there are likely fan cables still connecting the board to the cooler. Disconnect those before fully separating the two. And sure enough, that's some 10-year-old thermal paste. Let's get it cleaned up. Following the standard CPU practice, we'll use high-percentage isopropyl alcohol and a lint-free cloth or paper towel to clean the GPU die. In this case, the die is bare. Notice it doesn't have a protective heat spreader like many CPUs. That means we need to be extra cautious. Avoid fingerprints and don't apply too much pressure while cleaning or applying thermal paste. While you're here, you might notice rubber-like pads between the cooler and other components, particularly the video RAM and the MOSFETs. MOSFETs are tiny power regulators. Think of them like your laptop's power brick, but built right into the board. These pads help transfer heat away from those components. Be sure these stay in place while you're working, as losing one can lead to higher temps or even early hardware failure. Next, we'll apply a thin, even layer of thermal paste directly across the GPU die. Since there's no heat spreader, full coverage is critical for preventing future overheating. Now, let's reattach the cooler. Align all components carefully, making sure the thermal pads are still seated and the fan cable is plugged into the back of the board. Start the 4 GPU mounting screws in a diagonal corner-to-corner pattern, just finger tight at first. Then go back through in the same order and tighten each one snugly. While the perimeter screws can generally be fully tightened, over-tightening them can strip the threads or even crack your fan housing, so be careful when applying pressure. One optional tip is that I like to let the card sit for 24 hours before reinstalling it, just to give the thermal paste a little bit of time to cure. Once it's all back together, reinstall the GPU, plug everything back in, and boot up the machine. Run a graphics-intensive game or benchmark tool to confirm that the overheating and artifacting are gone. If the issue persists, consider checking with the seller about warranty options or looking into return policies on the platform that you purchased from. And that's a wrap for this episode of Reduce, Reboot, Recycle. If you found this helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe. Ring the bell to get notified of future episodes, and stick around for the outtakes. Thank you for watching, keep your chassis clean, and we'll see you next time for more lateral thinking with withered technology. Have a great day! Alright, recording is started. CPU seems mostly unaffected by this. Okay, alright, great. This is only the only kind of content that you can get here during co-working days. All right. All right. So, I mean, yes, we're doing it live, but we're recording it and cutting it later. All right. Specifically, we'll be servicing a used graphics card from eBay that shows... Specifically, we'll be servicing a used graphics card from eBay that shows... Once the card is out, move the case... Once the card is out, move the card... Case, card, case, card, case, case, card, card, case. Before we begin, leave the 4 screws that secure the GPU in place for now. Hold on. I can see that out of the corner of my eye. That did not look good. Tug gently on the fan or shroud. Following standard CPU practices, we'll use high percentage... Be sure they stay in place while you're working, because losing one... Okay, hold on. Be sure these pads stay in place while you're working, as losing one can lead to higher temps or even harder... These can generally be fully tightened, but be more gentle with the perimeter screws. Hold on, let me rephrase that. All right, that's done. Like that smash button. Hi, Laurel. Good to